reflects President Trump's policy priorities. House Speaker Mike Johnson wants a vote tomorrow. However, he's got a slim Republican majority. Tom Massey already a no, so he can't lose any votes. Democrat support may be necessary for passage. We'll see. Democrats, of course, are opposing the bill due to what they say are cuts to health care and other benefits, yada, yada, yada. Setting the stage, of course, for a potential showdown in the Senate if it gets that far. Let's talk about the vote on the stopgap bill with AMAC Action Senior Vice President Andy Mangione. Andy, good to see you here on Monday. So AMAC Action just spent a week on Capitol Hill. I'm curious what some of the issues you discussed with lawmakers, and I'm wondering if one of them was this stopgap funding bill. Good morning.
Well, it did come up when we were on the Hill last week, and good morning, David. But legislators, as of last week, were pretty tight-lipped about it because it hadn't been introduced yet. We spent a lot of time talking about the Trump tax cuts and making them permanent and the effect they'd have on small business owners. You know, David, many AMAC members are still working, and many own small businesses, and making these tax cuts permanent would help them to invest in their businesses and create more jobs. We also talked about ending the double taxation on Social Security, which would put more money in beneficiaries' pockets. And we talked about making pharmacy benefit manager business practices more transparent, and there's still a huge appetite for that to happen. You make those business practices more transparent, and you lower drug costs for everybody. It was a very busy time on Capitol Hill last week that resulted in very productive meetings.
Andy, Republicans now have control of the House, the Senate, as well as the White House. But there is still a push happening on the federal level and the state level to make sure that non-citizens don't vote in our elections, to make sure that our elections are secure even 4 years from now. So how have AMAC members been involved in that effort?
Well, we are eagerly awaiting the movement on the Safeguard American Voter Eligibility Act, that's otherwise known as the SAVE Act. That's been reintroduced in the House this year. If you recall, this bill passed the House last Congress but didn't get anywhere in the Senate, and we're hoping to change that this Congress. In the states, AMAC members have been very active in participating in call to action campaigns where they are close to seeing legislation voted on that would stop the foreign influence of state ballot measures in states like Kentucky and Missouri. Now, these bills would make it illegal for foreign billionaires to use their wealth to pay for state ballot campaigns that support things like abortion and are against school choice. In Kansas, we submitted testimony on behalf of our members in support of a bill that would ban ranked choice voting, and we're tracking that bill as it makes its way through the legislature. And we are currently running a pressure campaign in Wyoming to pressure the governor there to sign a very good election integrity bill. So AMAC members have been very active in the states.
Yeah, and speaking of the states, Andy, there's a pretty big election taking place in Wisconsin on April 1. Tell us about what exactly is at stake and how AMAC members have mobilized.
Thank you, Dr. Gina. There's a huge election in Wisconsin. They're going to be voting to replace a retiring state Supreme Court justice. Right now, the left currently holds a 4-3 majority on the court, and this election could tip the court to a constitutionalist conservative majority. And importantly, there's also a voter ID measure that's on the ballot. And if passed, this would add a voter ID requirement to Wisconsin state constitution and make their elections more secure. We've activated AMAC members in Wisconsin to do two things. One, sign up to work the polls as an observer or a worker. And two, vote early when early voting begins on March 18th. And you can bet we'll be watching this election.
Andy, let me ask you this. You recently polled your members on President Trump's idea to share Doge savings with taxpayers. That's been a big talker across the country here, specifically with Gina, Terrance, and I. How did AMAC members respond to this idea of those Doge dividend refund checks?
Well, David, AMAC members are very unselfish, and they're proud to put America first. We asked them what they thought about President Trump's idea to share $5,000 rebate checks funded by Doge savings with taxpayers, and they've responded in true altruistic fashion. Nearly 70% of the 40,000 poll participants said keep the rebate checks and apply any Doge savings to pay down the national debt and to shore up Social Security and Medicare. This patriotic response demonstrates the concern AMAC members have for the future of the nation they love so much and the legacy programs they want perpetuated for future generations.
Dr. Gina, that answer, I think, hits the nail on the head. You and I are AMAC members because you and I said similar to what the AMAC members said, that we wanted the money to go back to the government and help pay down the deficit. David, you're apparently much younger than us because you say, give me the check, baby, give me the check.
No, I'm apparently more selfish, apparently. That's what's happening. Yeah, no, that's all right. That's okay.
Hey, Andy, I want to shift gears a little bit. You've often reminded me during our conversations that many AMAC members are parents, their grandparents, in some cases, even great-grandparents, which leads me to the question about President Trump doing away with the Department of Education. What is the sense? What is the feeling amongst AMAC members as it relates to that idea from the president?
They're all for it, Terrance. They want more local control of schools. It's not as if the Department of Education is going to go away and they spend the money elsewhere. They're going to share that money with the states, more local control over education, and perhaps even giving parents more school choice options. Our members are all for it.
Amazing. One question I just in our chat, I was just watching, Andy, and Dave Ultra said, we were talking about tariffs a little earlier. And, the media would have you think that the American public is panicked. Dave Ultra said tariffs work every single time. And Captain Beyond said 25% increase in Canada lumber means a 25% profit for U.S. lumber. Is that the way AMAC members are seeing it? Are they afraid of these tariffs?
They are not, Dr. Gina. We just polled them this week, and overwhelmingly, they support the tariffs. Some admit that it's a bit of a gamble, but if they create more jobs, bring in more revenue, they are all for them. And a lot of our members support the tariffs just, in President's strategy to stop the flow of fentanyl and other illegal substances into the country. They are supporting the President's strategy using tariffs.
Awesome.
Interesting. Andy, great to have you with us. It's high stakes for sure, the tariffs. But we'll see what happens. Andy, appreciate you being here. Great to see you.
Thank
you.
Andy.
My pleasure.
All right, coming up, your eyes and the power of pistachios. That's quite a tease. In moments, find out how many you need to eat to protect your eyes from damage. And later, are Doge cuts hurting America's national defense? The details when American Sunrise continues.
That, my friends, is the American sunrise over Dallas. Welcome back this morning. I'm Dr. Gina. Thank you so much for joining us. Time now for today's health news, sponsored by the Wellness Company. And under the microscope today, the power of pistachios. Researchers at Tufts University discovered that eating just 2 handfuls of pistachios every day can help you protect against age-related macular degeneration. AMD is a disease that gradually damages the macula, the part of your eye's retina responsible for sharp and central vision. Doctors say AMD is a leading cause of vision loss in older adults. So why pistachios for eye health? Well, pistachios are rich in lutein. It's an antioxidant that helps shield your eyes from harmful blue and ultraviolet light. The study demonstrated improved vision within only 6 weeks among those who included pistachios in their diet. Besides benefiting eye health, pistachios also support overall well-being by providing fiber, protein, and essential nutrients, which contribute to better heart health, weight management, and the big one today, reduced inflammation. We're reading more and more about this all the time, and more about the health of nuts, the selenium in Brazil nuts. We've got in the bottom door of my refrigerator shelf is like a nut buffet that my husband has set up because we're reading all this stuff about the health of nuts. It's a new day in America and a new administration in Washington, D.C. There's a lot of excitement and optimism about the future, but reality is it's going to take a lot of work, especially when coming to fixing our broken healthcare system. The forces responsible for breaking it aren't going to go away. The challenges our system faces will not disappear overnight. So now more than ever, you want to be prepared. That's where the Wellness Company comes in. Their doctors are medical professionals. You can trust them, and their line of prescription kits are the gold standard when it comes to keeping you safe and healthy. Whether it's the medical emergency kit, the contagion kit, the first aid kit, the travel kit, these prescription kits contain an assortment of life-saving medications and guidebooks to assist in the proper use of these medications. From flu to strep to COVID to bird flu, a trip to the beach, a trip overseas, the Wellness Company has a prescription kit designed to keep you and your family safe. Make America healthy again, it starts at home. So do your part, protect the health of yourself and your family. Go to twc.health/RAV. Today, give it an order. That's twc.health/RAV. Use the promo code RAV. That'll save you 10%. David Brody, I mean, with this cold-sounding voice, what a great advocate am I for the health segment.
Yes, this is perfect.
I am a really good advocate, though, David. I think I'll do a great job today when we're talking about the napping segment.
Yes, because that will come right after everything you're going through. So hang in there, Dr. G.
Okay.
All right. So there's been a significant escalation, obviously, in the Middle East. I feel like we're saying that all the time. Israel cutting off its electricity supply to the Gaza Strip. The move aims to pressure Hamas, who's still currently holding 24 living Israeli hostages and the bodies of 35 others kidnapped on October 7th. Of last year. Israel has sent a delegation to Qatar for further negotiations, signaling a potential path towards peace amid the heightened tensions. Joining us now with insight is Alex Trayman, CEO and Jerusalem Bureau Chief of Jewish News Syndicate. Alex, good to have you on the show. So what's it going to take here for both sides to come to an agreement to end this war? Is anything in sight at all, or what's happening here?
Well, David, thank you so much for having me. And I think that you are at an impasse. Really, the only currency that the Hamas organization has right now is the hostages that it's holding. Obviously, Israel and the United States want Hamas to return all those hostages immediately. The president making yet another demand, what he called the final demand for the release of all hostages. But what Israel and the United States want is for Hamas to be completely out of power and demilitarized in the Gaza Strip. They want their top leadership exiled from the Strip, and they want to start to see a plan for the resettlement of hundreds of thousands of Gazans outside of the Strip. These are all terms that Hamas will not agree to, and so they're holding on to the hostages.
Can you explain something to me that is just such a layman's question, but I just have to ask you this question because I still don't have a satisfied answer to it, and I've asked several people. Why is it that every time hostages are released, it seems like Israel releases hundreds of hostages and Hamas releases 4 dead bodies, or 2 live hostages and 4 dead bodies? Can you explain this?
Well, you actually have a lot of Israelis asking the same question. I mean, it's an immoral deal that Israel basically agreed to, which demonstrates on the one, the value that Israelis are willing to place on each and every one of the lives of the hostages. At the same time, it's important to understand that the framework for that phase one deal and the return of these hostages was initially presented by the Biden administration. At the time, Prime Minister Netanyahu accepted those terms offered in May of last year because he was calling Hamas's bluff. And when President Trump came into office, Steve Witkoff came to the Middle East and he took a look at those deals and he said, look, Netanyahu, you were willing to accept it before. Would you be willing to accept it now? And I believe that Netanyahu was caught between a rock and a hard place. And he said, yes, I'll accept it.
You are the first person to answer that. Thank you so much.
Well, that's very interesting. Hey, Alex, listen, there's been a recent poll by the Israeli Democracy Institute. It shows that a majority of Israelis believe Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, should accept responsibility for the security breach on October 7th. I'm wondering to get your take on that and his future, because I know he's a, quote, wartime prime minister, but boy, what does the future look like? And what's the view on the security apparatus surrounding October 7th now that we're removed from it?
Well, first of all, I mean, the headline there is skewed, and I looked at the poll myself, and it actually showed that an even larger percentage said that at the current moment that the prime minister should not resign. So there was there was a large group, but not a majority, that said that the prime minister should resign now. But this is the same group of people that wanted Netanyahu out of office before the war. And you actually had a larger group of all segments that said even though the prime minister should accept responsibility, that he should not resign during the war. And Israelis want the prime minister to finish this war, to win this war, and to have what Netanyahu called a total victory.
All right. Well, there's another poll, this one from Gallup. It reveals that for the first time since 2005, American support for Israel has fallen below 50%. This shift is particularly strong, of course, among Democrats, with their sympathy for Israelis dropping to 38% and support for Palestinians rising to 49%. The poll also discovered that only 40% of Americans approve of President Donald Trump's job regarding the situation between Israelis and Palestinians. My own children, I have to tell you, are coming to me with some of the most anti-Semitic things they've read, mostly on TikTok. It seems like there is a big campaign, big anti-Semitic campaign on TikTok. And this is very troubling, Alex.
Oh, it's absolutely troubling. You mentioned TikTok and social media. We've seen that anti-Israel, pro-Hamas messaging is outstripping and outscoring pro-Israel messaging by as much as 10 to 1 to 100 to 1 to even 1,000 to 1 on TikTok on all the platforms. So if that's where your children are getting their information, then they are going to be getting anti-Israel information. And while you're correct that we've seen the greatest dramatic shift in support for Israel on the left side of the spectrum in the Democratic Party, is also a very troubling trend, I would say, on the right side of the spectrum as well. Isolationists that think that Israel's the one that's made America engage in all kind of wars. It's simply just not true. It's anti-Semitic, and unfortunately, the anti-Semitism on the far right is almost looking identical to the anti-Semitism that you see on the far left.
Let me just say real quick, can I just say thank you? Thank you for saying that. Because the far right extremism is exactly correct. It is out there. It might not be as wide and deep as the left, for sure. No doubt about that. But it's there. And I'm glad you said that, because I've got, they try to, a lot of folks in the legacy media try to lump in conservatives with that way far right extremism. And it's not the case. So thank you for saying that. Sorry, Gina. Go ahead. I just had to say that.
Yeah, no, but this is very concerning. And I just want to add that my children are adult children, because I know everyone's going to be like, your kids are on TikTok. They're adult children, and they're all very involved in politics. They have to look at the different social media. And if you look at Instagram or Twitter, you could see TikTok posts there as well. So I just wanted to add that. Alex Trainman, we're just wishing you all the best, praying for you all the time. God bless you, and thank you for your work.
God bless you. Thanks so much. Thank you.
All right, coming up on American Sunrise, CBS comes out swinging against President Trump in his $20 billion lawsuit against the network. Those details ahead. Also later, praying to God can be done in person and they're saying online. Well, find out how and when America Sunrise continues.
All right, time now to stay awake, not woke. Brought to us by the 1775 Coffee Company. Every morning, you've got a choice. Start your day with coffee that stands for American values, or keep giving your money to woke corporations that despise everything we believe in. 1775 Coffee is roasted right here in Florida. Fresh, bold, and tested to be mold-free, so you're not drinking stale corporate sludge. And believe me when I say it, it is darn good coffee. They're making coffee great again because let's face it, the corporate coffee giants sold out a long time ago. Their coffee is stale, bitter, and mass-produced in factories that couldn't care less about quality. 1775 is different. Small batch roasted, taste tested by people who actually love this country, and shipped directly to your door. Prefer K-Cups? They've got you covered. Bold, smooth, and ready to brew. Want a brain boost? Grab their Vitality Mushroom Blend. It's packed with lion's mane and cordyceps for a clean, focused boost without the additives. And if you want the real deal, dark roast hits harder than a Trump rally in the Rust Belt. Go to 1775coffee.com/RAV and use code RAV for 10% off your order. Fuel up with freedom and start your morning right. All right, now that we are caffeinated, it is time to stay awake, not woke. We have an update on President Trump's $20 billion lawsuit against CBS News. He is accusing the network of election interference over its handling of its 60 Minutes interview with Kamala Harris. That was, of course, in the lead up to last November's presidential election. But now Paramount Global is filing two motions to dismiss the $20 billion lawsuit, claiming the Trump team is looking to punish CBS for, quote, constitutionally protected editorial judgments. Don't know about that. Trump's legal team released a statement saying President Trump is committed to holding those who traffic in fake news, hoaxes, and lies to account. CBS and Paramount committed the worst kind of election interference and fraud in the closing days of the most important presidential election in history. President Trump will pursue this vital matter to its just and rightful conclusion. Let's take a look back at some of that 60 Minutes interview.
Vice President Harris told us she's determined the U.S. must win the economic competition with China for the 21st century. And as for the war between Russia and Ukraine, what does success look like in ending the war in Ukraine?
There will be no success in ending that war without Ukraine and the UN Charter participating in what that success looks like.
Would you meet with President Vladimir Putin to negotiate a solution to the war in Ukraine?
Not bilaterally without Ukraine, no. Ukraine must have a say in the future of Ukraine.
As president, would you support the effort to expand NATO to include Ukraine?
Those are all issues that we will deal with if and when it arrives at that point.
That just looked like a lot of word salad to me. I don't know. Let's welcome in Adam Weiss, the host of Media Exposed here on Real America's Voice, to discuss the latest on this case. Adam, always great to see you. Thanks for joining the show this morning.
Thank you, Emily.
So lawyers that are looking to dismiss, they're calling this lawsuit an affront to the First Amendment. They say it's not based in law or fact. We just watched some of that interview. Do you think that those cuts that they made to the Kamala Harris 60 Minutes clip, did that stretch beyond just editorial judgment?
I think that they really stretched it because this whole interview could be taught in universities and across the country because they laid all the groundwork for this one interview because she didn't want to do all the other interviews. And they knew they'd get a friendly, free, easy interview from you. And it even comes down to some of the questions. When Bill Whitaker asked to let me just give you the most basic question. Why do you want to be president? She went on this word salad about I have ambitions, I have dreams, I have hope. And then he came back and said, wait, madam, why do you want to be president again? And she said, I have a career and I have dreams. And it's just the word salad that she was constantly doing through the interview. They were playing, fixing it all along. And that's not journalism. Journalism, you could make a mistake if you start quick. We all do this. There are hundreds of interviews. You start quick and we miscue a tape, but not fixing bad parts of an interview. That's misleading. That's bias. And that's what the president wants to point out because nobody knows it better than him from dealing with the media for 9-10 years who constantly did this to him. And you need to fix a problem here. We can't have this happen in American politics.
Absolutely. I mean, this could be a $20 billion mistake for CBS. We don't know. But we do know that FCC Chairman Brendan Carr has opened an investigation into the network over this very editing situation. So do you think that they might be looking at more legal trouble than we once thought over this single clip?
Yeah, why not? Because the SEC should look into these. When corporations this big, this powerful, that can sway an election, the most important thing we have is democracy, presidential election, go in and purposely try to mislead the public, fix an election. That's what the SEC needs to do, is look into this and, fix this problem for the future. So good for them. Finally lay it out. Let the public decide. Let the court of opinion for the public decide. Why not?
Absolutely. And I think that's why so many of these mainstream outlets have just been bleeding viewership because the trust is gone. The trust is just completely lost. Adam Weiss, thank you so much for joining the show.
Thank you, Emily.
Up next, prayers and faith on your smartphone. The details are next as American Sunrise continues.
the heaven and the earth.
Welcome back, everybody, to American Sunrise. I'm David Brody. Time now for our moment of faith that is brought to us by Lee Greenwood and the God Bless the USA Bible. All right, in focus today, the rise of faith online. Actor Chris Pratt has partnered with Hallow, a Catholic prayer app, to encourage users to deepen their faith during Lent. In a recent advertisement, Pratt led a prayer inviting viewers to connect with God and promote the app's resources. Take a look.
Hey, how's it going? Chris Pratt here. Look, I know this is totally out of the blue, but would you stop and pray with me real quick? I'll make it quick. Close your eyes. Lord, it says in Matthew chapter 18, verse 20, that when 2 or 3 are gathered in your name, there you will be. Jesus, we invite you into this moment right now. Fill our hearts with your Holy Spirit, with your forgiving, loving grace, God. We invite you to teach us to live the way you want us to live, to give us gratitude in every moment, God, so that we may be a light for you. We pray in the name of Jesus. Amen.
All right, let's talk about that a little bit more with Shane Winnings, the CEO of the Promise Keepers. He joins us to discuss. Shane, good to see you, sir. So, COVID happened. Many believers went online rather than into their church. It does seem like, though, there's this online faith tool, many tools that are out there. What do you think? I mean, it's great to have it online, but being in person obviously is crucial in terms of community. How do you see the different dynamic nowadays?
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny. That's how I actually got started. I was a street preacher for about 4 years. And while I was a cop, I would work at night, and God called me to start preaching on TikTok during the lockdowns. And I didn't want to do it because you know how TikTok is. It's filthy. But I got on there, and there were only a handful of us preaching the gospel. And within 6 months, I had 500,000 followers. And I don't say that to blow myself up, but I was just on there saying what the Bible said and preaching the Bible. And specifically Gen Z and the younger generation, they were craving truth, especially during that time. And it hasn't slowed down. Our online ministries are growing. People are wanting to connect. But to your point, Jesus didn't say where 2 or 3 iPads are gathered, there I am. He said where 2 or more are gathered. And so as effective as online ministry is, we still have to push those in-person gatherings, that weekly church attendance, small groups. It's very important for our walk.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, now that I think about it, I don't think I've seen the word iPad in the Bible. That's a good point. Great point. Hey, tell us about the mission of Promise Keepers. You've been on before. We'd love to hear about it. I mean, I can tell you my personal story back in the late 90s with Bill McCartney at Mile High Stadium in Denver. Went to my first Promise Keepers rally. I mean, I'm old school. I'm old school PK. But tell me a little bit about what's going on now, some of the upcoming events and things like that.
Absolutely. Well, we're still doing our conferences. We're scheduling a series of men's conferences around the country. Right now, we've got one locked in for Washington State in the fall. That's going to be in Yakima on September 27th. I'm also about to do a college tour where I'm asking, what is a man? So I'm going to set up with 2 microphones and just have people come debate me as I talk about biblical manhood, because that's something we don't really see in the church, is masculinity or manhood taught. And so you've got all these kids that are graduating high school, entering college, and they don't know what it actually means to be a man of God. So I'm excited to do that. And we've got our weekly Zoom Bible study, which is the Overcomers. That's what my hat is right here. We've got men from around the world that meet every Wednesday night. So whether it's digital or in person, we've got so much happening at Promise Keepers. Super excited. And people can follow us on socials or go to promisekeepers.org to find out more.
That's fantastic. Okay, well, speaking about what is a man of God joining us today. Thanks again, Shane. Really appreciate your time. Great stuff.
Hey, thanks a lot. Yeah, thank you.
Right. Awesome testimony, by the way. We're back with the second hour of American Sunrise in 2 minutes. Stick around.
Introducing the limited edition God Bless the USA Bible, inspired by Lee Greenwood's hit song and the most recognized patriotic anthem in America, God Bless the USA. The God Bless the USA large print leather-bound King James Bible also contains America's founding documents, the U.S. Constitution, the Bill of Rights, the Declaration of Independence, and the Pledge of Allegiance, along with a handwritten chorus to Lee Greenwood's song, God Bless the USA. With its large print and slim design, this Bible invites you to explore God's Word anywhere, anytime. The God Bless the USA Bible makes the perfect gift and cherished family heirloom keepsake to pass on to future generations. Designed for an easy reading experience in the trusted King James Version translation, this large print Bible is perfect to take to church, Bible study, work, and for traveling. Order yours today at GodBlessTheUSABible.com.
legal immigrant child rapist in her city. In fact, she created the conditions for these heinous crimes. And so, look, there's a mayoral election coming up in November in cities across the country like Boston and New York City. So residents of Boston should not, and these cities, they shouldn't look at the election as Democrat versus Republican, but rather as who is on the side of these heinous criminals who rape and stab and kill versus who is on the side of the people.
To American Sunrise.
Whether it's culture,
We have breaking news to share with you.
politics,
President Trump is joining us live now from Florida.
we've got you covered.
This is what it looks like to be a patriot.
We have to protect the American family.
The American dream is still alive.
I'm David Brody.
I'm Terrance.
And I'm Dr. Gina.
Welcome back, everybody, to the second hour of American Sunrise. I'm David Brody, coming to you from the deep state, Washington, D.C. Let's bring in Dr. G in West Palm, T. Bates in our Denver newsroom. Good morning to both of you, of course. And Dr. G, you know, what's interesting here is that the House is going to vote tomorrow on this continuing resolution, 6-month continuing resolution. Normally, all the conservatives be against it, but Trump is saying, please vote for it so the government doesn't shut down. But, you know, in essence, this 6-month continuing resolution is the Biden budget numbers. In essence, it's basically what the Biden administration had agreed to. But Trump wants more time. This is a very interesting play. But it's really, they're kind of stuck here because the other alternative is to, well, shut down the government, and they can't have that right now. So this is interesting.
I do think that the American public is growing really weary of these CRs. I think President Trump understands that. We want something done. We want this budget under control. It'll be really interesting, though, David, as you're saying, with President Trump saying, yes, let's pass it, and this being the same budget, as you said, under Joe Biden that all the Democrats voted for. Will they not vote for it just to be spiteful? I mean, we all saw that embarrassing demonstration last week, Terrance, of them refusing to even stand up in that very official moment that took place. And so, you know, it's what we've come to expect from the Democrats. They make a spectacle. They don't pick their fights well. Yeah.
Can I just quickly say, Terrance, I just want to say one thing. What the Democrats are clearly trying to do here is they're saying to the Republicans, knock yourself out. Try to pass this alone just by yourself. If you can do it, more power to you. But if you can't, you're going to need our help. And when you need our help, we're going to want some stuff in this 6-month budget. And that's the play here by Democrats, Terrance.
Right. And David, correct me if I'm wrong. The fiscal year starts, what, October 1st or sometime in October. So really, this budget just gets us to the next fiscal year, which means that we went an entire fiscal year without an actual budget. It's been run off of CRs.
You are correct, sir. That's all I have to say. Correct. That is correct.
I guess that was kind of a rhetorical question because I kind of knew I was right. But I just wanted a second there. But I think that is an important thing to kind of add to the conversation, that we've gone an entire year without an actual budget, and now we're bumping up against the next fiscal year. Anyway, that is the big story today. President Trump, as they just said, encouraging all Republicans to vote yes this week on that continuing resolution in order to keep the government funded through September. Current government funding runs out on Friday. Taking to Truth Social, the commander-in-chief crediting both the House and the Senate with putting together what he calls a very good continuing resolution given the circumstances. He goes on to write, great things are coming for America, and I am asking you all to give us a few months to get us through to September so we can continue to put the country's financial house in order. Democrats will do anything they can to shut down our government, and we can't let that happen. And as the president pushes Congress to secure funding, he's also out with what he wants the legacy of his second administration to be. Talking on Fox News Sunday, the commander-in-chief laying out his big plans for the country.
I want a dynamic country where the private enterprise carries the day, not the government. And I want a strong country militarily. We need that nowadays. You can see that probably better than ever before. We're doing a series of incentives, tax incentives and other things. The tax bill, I think, is going to be very important. The Democrats will fight us all the way.
By the way, just to be clear, the show he was speaking on was not Fox News Sunday. It just happened to be that he was speaking on Fox News on Sunday, which is what I was trying to say. I apologize. And while President Trump continues his America First agenda, Canada has elected the man to succeed current Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. Former central banker Mark Carney will lead our northern neighbor as the country braces for the potential of a trade war with the United States. Carney is already talking tough and attacking President Trump.
There's someone who's trying to weaken our economy. Donald Trump. And Donald Trump, as we know, has put, as the Prime Minister just said, unjustified tariffs on what we build, on what we sell, on how we make a living. He's attacking Canadian families, workers, and businesses, and we cannot let him succeed. And we won't.
By the way, Carney has a pretty significant financial resume, which includes having run both the Bank of Canada and the Bank of England. In 2013, he became the first non-citizen of England to head up that country's central bank. That's a quick check of your headlines. I'll have more stories coming your way here in just a little bit. But now, let's get you back over to Dr. Gina and David.
Okay, T, appreciate it. Let's talk about the economy, as we've been doing in that first hour. And now, yet again, President Trump has said there would be a short pause on some imports coming in from Canada and Mexico, while Trump has also imposed new tariffs on China. Here's what the president told Fox Business about the issue. Take a look.
You know, the tariffs could go up as time goes by, and they may go up. And, you know, I don't know if it's predictability. I think
that's not clear.
No, I think that they say that. You know, it sounds good to say. But for years, the globalists, the big globalists, have been ripping off the United States. They've been taking money away from the United States. And all we're doing is getting some of it back. And we're going to treat our country fairly. This country has been ripped off from every nation in the world, every company outside in the world. We've been ripped off at levels never seen before. And all we're going to do is get it back. We're going to get a lot of it back. We're not going to let people take advantage of us anymore.
All right, for more, let's bring in RAV Chief White House Correspondent Brian Glenn from the North Lawn of the White House this morning. Brian, what more can you tell us on the tariffs front? To me, it seems like this is a long-term play here, right, to build up the external revenue service, if you will. And also, let's be honest, possibly if there's some, I don't want to use the R word, recession, but if there's some economic issues here as we go forward, maybe lower interest rates come from this. I mean, Trump always seems to have a plan B, C, and D here.
Yeah, the last time I checked, Trump was an accomplished businessman, and he'd been doing it for many years. But, David, let's be honest about this. Where were the Democrats? Where was the media when we saw over 4 years double-digit inflation across the board on just about every consumable good? They were silent. In that room to my left, you're right. They were silent the entire time. Now President Trump comes out with tariffs to try to maybe get what we should have been getting. We've been getting ripped off for years. And now the media freaks out. Democrats freak out about tariffs, but they were silent for 4 years. Think about that for a second. So they're using these tariffs to weaponize against Trump and the whole media narrative right now. It's just to take down Trump. That's what this is all about. He's a smart businessman. He's going to get this country back in order. And I think, so what? You know what? The reciprocal tariffs need to happen. Okay? You charge us 50%, we're going to charge you 50%. You charge us 2%, we'll charge you 2%. It's simple. It's common sense. And finally, we have a president in the Oval Office that is business-minded, that is going to do something about it. We've been getting ripped off for far too long.
Well, Brian, the business happening in the Oval Office in the West Wing today is out right now. I'm looking at the public schedule for President Trump. Says at 2, he's going to have a roundtable with Technology CEO Council. Then at 3, he'll sign another executive order. And at 5, the president will hold a ceremonial swearing in for the director of the United States Secret Service. 3 to 5, that's a 2-hour gap between that executive order signing. And that's significant because typically when the president signs an executive order, he also gives the media a good 45 minutes at least to ask questions. And so I would imagine one of the main questions with Friday's budget deadline coming up is going to be about the continuing resolution and how things are looking on Capitol Hill in that respect. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah. I think so as well. I mean, it's a big deal, and I said this in the 8 o'clock hour. I can't imagine that I'd be standing here today supporting a CR. This is what we fought against a year ago, but now this is what we've been told to support. Once again, I think President Trump and his team have a plan. And if you think about this for a second, we've only been in office since January 20th, and so coming up on March 14th doesn't give him a lot of time in between getting inaugurated and this deadline. So he's just given himself a little bit more time, and from what I've been told, on the inner side, they're going to make sure these buckets of cash, these buckets of budget, if you will, doesn't go to the things that fund the DEI programs that we voted against in November. So I'm trusting that this CR will be a little different. But I also know that there will be a handful of Democrats that have TDS and they simply won't get behind it. But I think at the end of the day, the vote will go through. But then once you said, Terrance, on the 30th, we'll be doing this all over again. And let's just hope we have a very different plan that by then Speaker Johnson will, he'll get the House in order and we'll finally get a budget with some cuts and the things that we voted on here on this past November.
Yeah, Brian, the media is panting over this reportedly heated meeting between Trump officials and Elon Musk. The New York Times reports that Musk and Secretary of State Marco Rubio clashed over Musk's approach to reining in government. Russ said Rubio has not fired anyone, while Rubio cited the 1,500 State Department employees who took the early buyouts. We're hearing a lot about this in the media. All of the media, like I said, just panting about this. The reality is that Elon and Rubio were at dinner with President Trump this weekend at Mar-a-Lago, and looking like they were having quite a good time with him DJing per usual, with the president DJing per usual. What seems a lot more upsetting to me, and what almost no one is reporting, Brian, is that Joe Biden auto-signed all of the documents that he signed during his presidency. There's only one document, Brian, that he actually signed himself, and that's his resignation document, Brian. Other than that, everything was auto-signed.
Yeah.
Who was pushing the auto-sign button, Brian? Who was actually signing? Who was the president for the last 4 years?
That's a great question. I think that's a question we should be asking, and I think it's interesting. And by the way, someone did ask in the Oval Office with President Trump last week about that so-called discrepancy between the tension between Elon Musk and Rubio, and he said he downplayed it quickly and said there is no tension.
Yeah.
They continue to work together. I think a healthy debate is what makes this great.
Yeah.
But to your point, who was running? Yeah, absolutely. But who was running the White House back then? Who was doing this auto sign? That's a great question. And whoever it is clearly was not supportive of this country and being in America first. But that's an interesting thing that it has come to into the news the last 24 hours on this auto signature. And you got me, Dr. Gene. I have no idea.
Can I just weigh in on Musk and Rubio real quick? I don't care about any of the tension between that. Yeah, the media loves to play the drama game. I got that part of it. But it does go to a larger issue, which is it Musk making the call or is it Rubio making the call? In other words, is it cabinet agency heads making the call or is it Musk making the call? Like, who's doing it? And apparently, we've heard reporting, Brian, has suggested that Trump is saying it's cabinet agencies that make the call.
Yes, thank you, David.
So, I mean, I don't know.
I agree with you. Thank you, David. Yeah, you're right.
What President has been
you're
very
right.
clear about
I think
this.
it's cabinet.
We can't have Musk be making decisions, guys. I mean, seriously. I mean,
I'm
no
sorry,
way.
President, and I know you know this, Brian, President has set up a system where they have a couple of weeks to report. If they don't report, then it's Doge's responsibility to go in. So there's a system in place, I think, Brian.
All right. Well, they've got the music going, which is unfortunate because I would love to discuss this more. Yeah. We'll have to discuss this a whole lot more on the show. The music is ushering us out. Thanks, Brian. I appreciate it. All right. We'll talk about it. Bummer on that music. We really need to talk about this more. Coming up, President Trump wants a major historical artifact moved to the Oval Office. We're going to tell you what it is. But first, there are more reports of waste inside the Defense Department. Which division is it now exactly? Those answers when we come back.
All right, welcome back to American Sunrise. I'm Emily Finn. It's great to have you all with us this morning. It is now time to drain the swamp. And this morning, we're flushing out the Defense Department waste. A former Defense Department employee detailed significant amounts of ridiculous spending inside the Pentagon and actually praised Elon Musk and Doge for their efforts in reining it in. He said the acquisitions team needs to be reined in and claimed it is bloated with remote workers whose only job is to review contracts. They reportedly had little contact with superiors, and working from home made things very inefficient for them. So let's bring in Dr. Gina, David, and Terrance. Does anything shock you anymore, you guys? I mean, they've already identified $80 million of waste. They've only been there for 2 months. Are you guys surprised?
No, not at all.
I guess not.
I mean, seriously, like this is, I think we've all known it, that there's fraud, waste, and abuse happening in the government and that the government was too bloated. But it took President Trump saying, okay, we're going to actually show it to you. We're going to create a commission. We're going to create Doge and show you where the fraud is, show you where the waste is happening, show you where the abuse is happening. And while I think so many of us are shocked at the findings, I think it's probably something that we all had an idea about, we all thought, and now we're just getting the evidence, David and Dr. Gina.
Yeah, and here's the thing. That article goes on to talk about that this guy details his time in the acquisition office. He says, yeah, he was working from home and he was really enjoying the NFL Network. He said that was a fun time. And he also took 4 months to pass the bar exam while he had time at home. And then he put thanks taxpayers. So, this is the type of stuff that's going on, working at home, if you will, Dr. G.
David, you're going to kill me on this, but I mean, a little credit to Elon here.
No, that's fine. That's fine. I'm not anti-Elon.
I mean, this is a lot of money, Emily, and this is just one place, right? And the whole world right now, or it feels like, at least the media is portraying, the media and also David Brody, that Elon is this, evil guy who's not elected that came in. I'm sorry, I'm totally ribbing David this morning because I know he's going to get a long nap this afternoon, so it's not going to matter. But the reality is that Donald Trump has assembled what is essentially a business board of directors around him to operate the business of the United States. And he's put people in there, Emily, I believe, that he thinks can best handle each of their own little slots in his vision for the restructuring, rebuilding. I don't want to say restructuring, but reconstituting of America, right? Building it back to what it was. And Elon is an important part of that. And I listen, I am not a personal, I don't know him super well. I've met him a few times, nice enough guy. This is not like a personal thing for me at all. His personal life, obviously, his family values and things like that are other than mine. But I appreciate somebody with the kind of business vision and acumen that it seems to me like Elon does have. And I just don't think we count him out until he proves himself truly unworthy, David, because these kinds of numbers, they talk.
They absolutely do. And if you think about it, Gina, like you said, every department, every government agency has their own specializations, right? They have their own budgets, their own things that they have to be in charge of. And when you think about the Department of Defense specifically, this is one of our most important government agencies. This is what keeps us safe as Americans. So if we're wasting $80 million on our defense, think about how that can be allocated better to things that are going to really protect us and really help. So
right, Emily, you're so right. Think one small grid accident, right? And we would have really loved to have had that money watching out for that. You will never know what didn't happen in a department because of money that was wasted. So you can't even put a life cost on this kind of stuff.
Yeah, really, really well said there, Gina. Now, it's not just the Department of Defense that they are cutting waste. They're also cutting waste at the IRS as well. And as we know, the IRS is the largest collection agency in the world. And with the April 15th deadline fast approaching, it is more aggressive than ever. In 2025, enforcement has ramped up. And if you owe back taxes or have unfiled returns, waiting is just simply not an option. The longer you do, the worse it gets. And ignoring your tax troubles is the worst thing that you can do. April 15th marks another tax year that has passed you by. And getting ahead of this now is the smart move. But never contact the IRS alone. Instead, let the experts at Tax Network USA handle it for you. Why? Because not all tax resolution companies are the same. Tax Network USA has a preferred direct line to the IRS, meaning they know exactly which agents to deal with and which to avoid. With proven strategies to settle tax problems in your favor, whether you owe $10,000 or $10 million, Tax Network USA's attorneys and negotiators have already resolved over $1 billion in tax debt. Talk with one of their strategists today. It's free. Stop the threatening letters, stop looking over your shoulder, and protect yourself from property seizures and bank levies. Don't let the IRS control your future. Call 1-800-905-8000 or visit tnusa.com/RAV. More American Sunrise is coming up right after the break.
Good morning to you, Scottsville, Kentucky. One of the best things your state brought to us is fried chicken and that Colonel guy. Love it. In fact, I might go there for lunch today. Welcome back, everyone. We're getting you ready for the bell, the opening bell at the New York Stock Exchange. It's going to ring here in about 5 minutes. So far, the market's not looking so good. All three major indices are in the red. Gold, silver, and crude oil, however, in the green. We'll take you to New York for the opening bell shortly. But now, let's get you over to David Brody.
Okay, T, appreciate it. All right, so Europe trying to figure out how to save Ukraine after that Oval Office meeting between President Trump and Ukrainian President Zelensky went next level sideways earlier this month. European leaders have agreed now to boost defense spending for Ukraine at an emergency summit in Brussels last week. 26 European leaders signed a text. Well, not that they were on a text chain, but you know what I'm trying to say. Anyhow, they were calling for a peace deal that respects Ukraine's independence, sovereignty, and territorial integrity, while including Ukraine in the negotiations. By the way, Hungary abstained. So where do things go from here? Well, let's talk about the broader issue here by bringing in presidential historian Craig Shirley. Craig, good to see you. You know, the fact is, President Trump got Europe to do more. He has totally changed the game, and he's changed the Democrat Party, too. Craig, good morning.
Yeah, good morning, David. Yes, he has changed the Democratic Party. You know, an old sports writer once said, sometimes the better story is in the loser's locker room. And look what the Democratic Party is today. They have numbers that I haven't seen in my lifetime. astonishing. 32% approval, 53% disapproval. It's how bad. Look at their behavior at the State of the Union address. And they came off the losers. They came off defending their childish behavior and not applauding a little boy with brain cancer or a young man going to West Point or the widow of a firefighter. They couldn't applaud anybody, any of their fellow Americans. They couldn't applaud their fellow Americans. Is that the Democratic Party is now about defending corrupt government and abortion. That's all it's about, and that's all the American people know that it's about. And that is not a winning message. Gone are the days when John Kennedy was a great anti-communist, or FDR was working with Winston Churchill to save Western civilization against Nazism and against the Empire of Japan. Is that the Democratic Party is a sad wreckage of its former self. And part and parcel of that is goes with European affairs and with Ukraine, because many people associate those things with the Democratic Party. So as the Democratic Party goes, so goes the will for Ukraine. That becomes less and less, and so goes the will to support the European Union.
Yeah, Craig, quick 30 seconds here, but I want to get to this. President Trump reportedly discussed with aides about moving the Declaration of Independence to the Oval Office from its home at the National Archives. Trump's aides reportedly were shocked. The cost on this would be crazy, the logistics. We're now understanding, though, there is no discussion about moving, or I should say there's now a discussion about moving an actual historical copy. If not, it's not the original. Your thoughts on that in about 20 seconds or so?
It's not, but the Constitution, the Declaration have moved around a lot of times since 1776 and 1782. From the original place in Philadelphia. They were moved during World War II. They were moved out of Washington for fear they'd be bombed and destroyed. They were moved to a hidden location in Maryland. So if Trump wants them there, I think that's great to help him. Help him remind him what the Declaration is all about. I think it's a great idea.
Well, as long as they're not in Biden's Porsche in Delaware. Thank you, Craig. Really appreciate your time. Thank you, sir.
You bet,
Great
David.
stuff. All right, opening bell now, sponsored by AMAC.
The Association of Mature American Citizens is the conservative voice for Americans 50 and older. AMAC is fighting for the values that you hold dear. Join today. Together, we can write the course of America.
We're about a minute away from the opening bell at the New York Stock Exchange. I can tell you that pre-market trading not looking so good. All of the major indices are down over a full percentage point. Ireland Inc. is at the podium. The applause is underway, which means we are literally moments away from the opening bell and then the markets officially opening, and we'll see if there's a change at all. Again, as I said, pre-market trading has not been good to all major American indices, all of them down over a full percentage point. Well, the bell is ringing. The markets are now officially open. And just like that, all of the indices remaining in the red right now. The Dow is down, the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ down as well. Gold, silver, and crude oil are up. We, of course, will be watching the markets, though, for you throughout the day to see if there is a major change. Hopefully, if you're an investor, it will end up being a good day for you, even though it's not off to such a great start. Well, folks, you don't have to go out and buy a life jacket when the boat is already sinking, and you don't go buy gold when the economy has already collapsed. Clearly, others are heeding this advice these days as gold hit all-time highs in the first part of 2025. It's not too late for you, though. The company that so many of you already trust to help diversify your savings into physical gold is the Birch Gold Group, and that company is already out. It, of course, specializes in gold and helping you convert an existing IRA or 401k into a tax-sheltered IRA in physical gold for no money out of pocket. Just listen to this 5-star review about the Birch Gold Group. It says simply, knowledgeable, helpful, non-pressure. That's what you get from the Birch Gold Group, and that's why so many people are endorsing them and have been for so long. So get your free information kit on gold simply by texting the word America to the number 989898. There's no obligation here, just useful information. With an A+ rating from the Better Business Bureau and countless 5-star reviews, text the word America to the number 989898 and let the experts at the Birch Gold Group help you secure your future with gold. Still to come here on American Sunrise, we're going going to take a deep dive into the psychological state of Volodymyr Zelensky and what the last few weeks have told us about him. More on that and so much more when American Sunrise continues in 2 minutes.
Welcome back to American Sunrise. I'm Dr. Gina. Thank you for joining us this morning. We invite you to join in the conversation on Getter and Rumble. It's time now to take the political pulse of America. And the beat today, people do not trust the Democrats. This is according to a new poll. According to this poll from liberal group Blueprint, 40% of Democrat voters said the Democrat Party does not have a game plan to respond to President Trump. Just 24% of them said the party has a game plan, but it's a bad one. And 10% said they liked the direction the party is going. Let's bring in American Sunrise correspondent Emily Flynn, along with David and T. Bates. Everyone, David, Brody, I'm going to give you first stab at this just because I was mean to you the last time we talked.
I was taking a nap. Sorry, I was taking a nap. I didn't hear anything.
Well, it is National Napping Day, so that's okay. You can do that. But, here's the thing. They're right. There is no plan. They are flailing, David. I can't see any exception to this. There is no leadership that I can see.
Zero. And by the way, just for the record, National Napping Day is every day for me. So I just want to be clear about that. You're right. And look, the approval numbers show it, or I should say disapproval numbers show it. 57% of Americans disapprove of Democrats. That's a problem. And also, beyond those numbers, the numbers inside the polls, whether it be economy, on taxes, on immigration, just go down the line of things that Americans really care about. Democrats are AWOL. I mean, there's no trust with Democrats at all on any of these issues. So Democrats obviously have a problem. And what is the strategy at this point? I mean, you've got certain ones, you've got the Gavin Newsom type strategy. He's at least saying a couple different things, right? He's trying to kind of moderate, but at the same time, he's fighting Trump in the California Assembly with more money given to fight Trump lawsuits and all of that on immigration. So he's trying to have it both ways. You got Gretchen Whitmer who's saying, I'll work with Trump when I can. And then you've got J.B. Pritzker who's calling Trump Hitler. So, I mean, you've got it all over the place as to where they're going on this type of stuff, Terrance.
And David, if I can just add, I take exception to the premise of the actual question in the poll, that Democrats don't have a plan to counter President Trump, basically. How about this, Democrats? How about this, Democrats? Draft a plan to make the country better. Draft a plan that's not anti-Trump, but that really speaks to the lives of Americans and improving the lives. How about come up with a plan that speaks to those things and take that to the voters when it's time to vote? Put your plan up and see if it lives up to the expectations of Americans. Don't put all your eggs in the anti-Trump basket. That's played out.
Yeah, it certainly isn't working for them. I think we saw that at Trump's joint session of Congress when Al Green had his outburst, started yelling. Even the Democrats weren't okay with that form of protest. So we American people are finally seeing the light. They're finally seeing that these policies simply just don't work in practice on the left. And now they can't even, they can't get their messaging down either. Being ultra woke and having these outbursts and trying to scream and just be as anti-Trump as possible isn't even working for them either anymore. I think that's what we saw last week.
Yeah, and now what we're finding out is that the populations in places like California, Illinois, New York are going down. That's bad news for Democrats because of congressional seats, and the populations in places like Texas and Florida are going up. So it's going from bad to worse for Democrats, no doubt about it. All right, guys, let's move over to Ukraine, where questions have been raised about Ukrainian President Zelensky. A lot of questions. A new piece in the Gateway Pundit by Dr. Carol Lieberman is saying Zelensky is unraveling before our eyes. And he is gaslighting the United States into supporting him. So Lieberman writes that since his disastrous meeting with President Trump, that he's losing his grip on power. And she writes that the power of being a wartime president has essentially gone to his head. Zelensky has delayed elections in his country, we should note as well. He was supposed to be having an election a year ago or so. For more, let's bring in the doctor herself, psychiatrist Carol Lieberman. Doctor, thanks for being here on the show. So expand on this. Take us inside Zelensky's head. If he was a tree, what kind of tree would he be? Give us the Oprah. Give us the Oprah.
A weeping willow
Phil.
at this point. He would be a weeping willow. Zelensky has unfortunately changed a lot from the beginning of the war. Remember when, he was heroic at the beginning. He was making all these videos, these calls to Congress. Remember that video where he spoke and he was asking for money and talking about the plight of his country and all that. And he really seemed sincere and heroic. And that now he seemed like he was smug. He was defiant. He was, he thought he had cards that he didn't have. He was acting really like an impetuous teenager with Trump. And especially after the media came and they started asking questions, that's when he changed. He wanted the attention back on him, and he was interrupting Trump and so on. And I think he was led to believe falsely that Trump needed him more than he needed Trump. He was totally ungrateful and smug. And when he left, he realized, it felt good to be that way in the Oval Office. But he came out of the Oval Office and he found that some people were calling for his impeachment. First of all, in Ukraine, the Ukrainian people were not happy that he basically threw away this chance for peace right away, an immediate chance for peace. And the promises that he got from various people in Europe, they were hollow promises. They really didn't have that much to offer. And so all of a sudden he was deflated. And so he wrote these tweets. It was kind of ridiculous. He wrote all these tweets. You could hear him. I felt like when I was reading them that I heard him breathing rapidly. Oh my God, I made a miss and I have to fix this up. And let me try to fix this up. And, but at the same time, one of the things that I thought was a real tell was Trump kept saying, we need to make this peace quickly. People are dying as we're sitting here. People are dying every day. And Zelensky really, you could see that he really didn't really seem to care as much as he did at the beginning of the war, that people were dying. He's just he wants things the way he wants them. And that was really sort of very disappointing, to say the least, that that he didn't seem to be as sincerely caring about his people.
I think there are a lot of ruthless leaders out there, Doctor, that don't particularly care about their people, especially when they're profiting to a massive degree. But in his case, So much of what he said and did looked literally mentally debased to me with my professional background. I know you said the same thing in your article, but perhaps even more disturbing, I don't know what's more disturbing. Now there's a new report about the mental faculties for the people who write the laws of this nation. This new report says that some lawmakers are suffering from diminished mental faculties. Connecticut Congressman Jim Himes says he has seen between 6 and a dozen of his colleagues that don't have what it takes at all mentally to do the job anymore. There are other claims also, Doctor, that they are showing up drunk or high to actually vote. I have heard from my own friends who serve that this is actually true, that a lot of people, a disproportionate amount of lawmakers in this nation show up under the influence of alcohol or weed. What do you make of this?
Well, that this needs to be exposed. I think that the people in their constituents need to know about this, and you take it to the polls the next time. Now, Zelensky, I sort of diagnosed him, so to speak. I didn't meet him, so I can't technically diagnose him. But I think, first of all, he's suffering from PTSD from all these years of war. He also seems to have a personality disorder, whether it's narcissistic or borderline or sociopathic, somewhere in that area. And so that, sort of describes how he has changed over these years. Now, as far as Congress, it is really sad. This is something to be said for shorter terms. There's something to be said for how really they are making a lot of money from the taxpayers, and that's why they're staying there, that it's not about doing the best for the American people.
You've talked a lot about Ukrainian President Zelensky. So I'm curious, one of the things that struck me during his conversation with President Trump is that President Trump told him directly, I've empowered you to be a tough guy. So to that end, are the European countries empowering him to be a tough guy these days by meeting with him, by continuing to push the narrative that they're going to help out, that they're going to continue to let him really guide, if you will, the peace process, or at least the road towards peace? Are these European leaders now empowering him, again, in the words of President Trump, to be a tough guy, or at least to give that appearance?
Yes, but they don't have the means behind them. They don't have the money. They don't have the military equipment, like the United States has. So it only goes so far. It certainly makes him feel better, just like it's been reported that there was Team Obama people who met with him before he met with Trump, and that they led him to believe that Trump needed him more than he needed Trump, in the sense that Trump promised in his campaign that he would stop the war. And so they got him to think that, he wants to show that he's coming through with this promise. So he needs him. Trump needs Zelensky more than Zelensky needs Trump. And of course, that's not true. And but he was filled with all these false promises. And I think he's realizing that he's on thin ice, but how much that's going to, which is going to win, the thin ice concern and the efforts to get back in the good graces of Trump, or this smug, arrogant, I can do what I want, and so yes, some more people will die today and tomorrow, but whatever.
Yeah, Dr. Carol Lieberman, great insight today. Thanks for being here. We appreciate your time.
Thanks, Doc.
Thank you.
All right, coming up, President Trump has 2 more shakeups for the Kennedy Center. We have those details next on American Sunrise.
let's spill some tea.
That's right. Let's spill some tea. Sponsored by Artillery Tea Company. ArtilleryTeaCo.com. Use promo code America's Tea for 25% off your first order. Artillery Tea is all natural, whole leaf. The tea bags are chemical free, and each tea bag can be used twice. Artillery Tea Company is family and veteran owned and operated, and a portion of your purchase goes to help veteran and first responder charities. ArtilleryTeaCo.com. Promo code America's Tea for 25% off your first order. So now it is time to spill some tea, and in the cup today, the Kennedy Center. They're responding to what they describe as a litany of misinformation surrounding recent show cancellations. In a post on X, the center's vice president of public relations released a statement and a list of all the canceled performances over the last 6 months out of, quote, the spirit of transparency. They said the cancellations have been due to a lack of sales or artist availability. Now, most recently, the political musical Hamilton made a public spectacle of their decision to bow out of their upcoming performance, with the show's creator saying he would not be part of the Kennedy Center while under President Trump's leadership. This all comes amid a massive shakeup to the Kennedy Center's board. President Trump took over as chair shortly after he took office and fired several board members in the process. He then named Rick Grinnell interim president and just announced his final 2 board members, and those are going to be 2 Fox News personalities, Laura Ingraham and Maria Bartiromo. They are going to join the fresh new leadership team. The revamped board includes other members like Chief of Staff Susie Wiles, former Deputy Chief of Staff Dan Scavino, and Second Lady Usha Vance. I want to bring in Dr. Gina, Terrance, and David to comment on all of this. What do you guys make of all of this drama at the Kennedy Center? To me, I'm pretty excited because I think this is opening up to have some, anti-woke performances, maybe some pro-Republican performances coming in. What do you guys make of this?
Before we even get to that, Dr. Gina, Emily, I'd like to move, and I'd like a second, please, that we also add David Brody, who is an admitted fan of Broadway, to the board there plus he lives close to the board there at the Kennedy Center. Can I get a second?
I second that motion, Terrance.
Another vote over here from me as well. David, I think you're in.
I agree. I'm in. I agree with that motion.
Okay. Should we just swear you in right now? No, but David Brody, you do have a long history in Broadway. Your family's been involved for historically. Tell us and give us your thoughts on this.
Well, I like the move, obviously, and I don't think there's a retaliation aspect here at all. So, in other words, the school of thought could be, okay, well, what about when a Democrat president gets in? Then he's going to bring back all the liberals. Well, hold on for a second. The liberals are already in charge of the Kennedy Center. So there's not going to, it's not going to be like, we're only going to allow liberals. You already only allow liberals, so to speak. I mean, a lot of this is liberal mumbo gumbo. Mumbo gumbo? No, that's not right. Mumbo jumbo. Anyhow, I can't speak this morning. Now I want gumbo. That's what's happened out of that whole conversation. Anyhow, I don't really know what I have to say other than I love Broadway. And you know what? These people are crazy, raging liberal lunatics. But you know what? Can I just escape for 2.5 hours and just enjoy a play, enjoy a musical? And that typically is what it is. And I like that. I like it.
I love Broadway too, David. And I especially love older Broadway. And yes. I'm glad to see. We've got to write this in. I actually have a friend whose children, this is just a little story that's just a sidebar, but it's really fascinating. Friend whose children were all very involved in Broadway. This family supported Broadway plays. They underwrote them. They sponsored them. She moved her entire family here to Florida, and she has actually set up a theater here in Florida because she had to get her children out of there because it was so bad, David. The child exploitation, and I'm talking about sexual exploitation. So it's more than just liberal themes, right? The things that are happening backstage in this Broadway, this is yet to be exposed, but I'll tell you something. It is scandalous and horrendous, and this all, we just need a sampling of America on Broadway, right? It doesn't have to be conservative or liberal. It doesn't have to be Democrat or Republican. It just needs to be about people that really enjoy it, and there needs to be space for people who have other views than the monolith that they prescribe. Terrance?
To your point, Dr. Gina, when we were at CPAC just a couple of weeks ago, I spent a good bit of time with a gentleman who is an opera singer, and he now does lessons in New York. But he had come to CPAC specifically to lobby to head up the Kennedy Center. In fact, all of this happened after President Trump, like literally shortly after President Trump had fired the previous head of the Kennedy Center. He was there lobbying, hoping to take over as the new head or be appointed the new head. And his whole point was that art, typically, the art community typically is the epicenter, if you will, for some of the backlash or some of the cultural attacks that we're seeing here in the country. And he thought that the Kennedy Center, one of the nation's premier performing arts venues, could be a perfect place to kind of turn the tide on that. It was a very interesting conversation with the gentleman. In fact, I'll talk to our producers. We might even see if we can get him on the show here over the next couple of weeks. It was an interesting conversation.
It is interesting, and it's such an illustration, Terrance, of what Andrew Breitbart said. I just want to bring up his legacy one more time because he was a friend in the very beginning of the Tea Party movement with me when we were just out there going and giving speeches, whoever would listen, right, with our bullhorns. You all remember that. We were out there, and Andrew always said that politics is downstream of culture. And what is more cultural than Broadway? That's why this is important. So for those who are saying, I don't think this is important, talk about the debt. No, this is important because this is the influence that trickles down to your children's and grandchildren's lives. That's why it's important.
Absolutely. I don't think this is going to be the last time that we talk about the Kennedy Center. I'm sure there's going to be some more developments as we see what performances are going to be coming there. So thank you so much, guys, for the discussion on this. There's still a whole lot more to come on American Sunrise. We can all learn something from our children, and this child has some life-saving lessons. We have that story next on American Sunrise.
Welcome back to American Sunrise. I am Dr. Gina. Thanks so much for joining us today. Time now for our Sunny Side Up. And in the pan today, Jack Dawson says he has wanted to be a paramedic since he was just 2 years old. When he would ride along in his grandfather's ambulance, he says he loved the flashing blue lights, and he started practicing CPR on his teddy bears. Well, you guys, now he's teaching his own CPR classes, overseen by his parents, of course, and is showing other children and adults how to use a defibrillator.
Oh, wow.
When he is away from the first aid classroom, Dawson says he patrols the city center, checking to make sure public defibrillators are up to date on their batteries and are fit for use. Under the name Mini Medic, Dawson shares training videos on YouTube and TikTok to teach even more people about medical training virtually. Take a look at this.
In an emergency situation, how do we get access to a defibrillator?
Good question. I'll show you now. So in an event of cardiac arrest, someone will call 999 and the ambulance service will get the closest resource and they'll tell you the code for the cabinet like this one.
He must be British, because everybody in the audience was like, 909? Who's calling 909? The kid must be British or Australian or something else.
Yeah, the accent too. But what a cutie. And I love this idea. I think that we should do more of this. Because, you know, some of the stuff he's teaching, honestly, I don't know how to do a defibrillator.
Yeah, I mean,
You
this
guys?
is great information that he's getting out there to everyone. I love that he's using kind of the power of social media to be able to get these messages out as well. I have such, I'm inspired that a 10-year-old knows what he wants to do in life and is already doing it so well, already teaching classes, already showing other kids his age and adults way older than him, you know, how to use these different kinds of tutorials, these different kinds of medical procedures. I'm just impressed. At 10 years old, that's really great to know what you want to do in life like that.
Like we say, we love the young whippersnappers here on the show. That's what we call them. Him and DJ should go across the country and change America.
There you go.
Great point.
DJ, you know, I love the God call. Like, you could tell what God called this little boy to do long before anybody had a say in it. Great show today. Thanks for joining us. So much more every single morning. Starts at 8 a.m., 7 a.m. with Jake Novak for the early show. War Room is up next. Hug your children. Love your God. Go boldly now. Live the truth, everybody. Have a great day. Take a nap.
Standing